Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. I thought I would share my Atlas passive tree plans for early League in 3.18. This is not an Atlas passive tree that I think I would stick with once you are well established in endgame. Once you start being able to take down uber bosses, you're probably going to want to respec out of a lot of these points. It is here to get you from being a fresh level 68 that's just killed Katava, all the way up to the point that you're capable of taking on some of the endgame bosses. It's got a bit of a focus on self-reliance. So whilst I'm going to be playing this in Trade League, you could use this in solo self-found with minimal or no changes if you wished. We're going to be doing three key things with this. Firstly, we're going to be speeding our progress through the Atlas by using some of the Atlas passives that do exactly that. Things that bias your map drops towards higher tiers. We're taking all 4 shaping clusters, and also we're taking a focus on Kirac missions. These Kirac missions, and actually not so much expert reconnaissance as the 4 small nodes that are near it, these will give you a considerable progression boost because Kirac will often send you to maps you haven't yet completed, and also Kirac's vendor window will often sell you maps that you haven't yet completed as well. Every time you initiate a Kirac mission, Kirac's vendor window resets, and so that can be a powerful way to turbocharge your early Atlas progression. That's the first aspect of the tree. It is a focus on early endgame progression through the Atlas. The second focus is on generating high-level bases. And the key here is actually going to be Lightless Legion. Lightless Legion is an Abyss node that grants abyssal depths in your area plus 3 to monster level and a bunch of extra monsters in them. The purpose of this node is that it dramatically increases your access to item level 86 crafting bases. There are a number of mods that can only roll on item level 86 gear, and there's also a number of mods that can roll only on 85 plus gear. Being able to generate a large number of crafting bases with item level 86 and above is really fantastic, and that's why I like Lightless Legion. By adding 3 to the monster level of all abyssal depths in the area, this increases them in a tier 16 map from monster level 84 to monster level 87. Monster level 87 depths will drop item levels 87, 88, and 89 equipment, and at least in 3.17, those are all mechanically equivalent to item level 86. Normally it's pretty hard to get item level 86 gear until you're able to face, say, the normal shaper, but with Lightless Legion, you'll get showered in it much earlier than that. So that's why I really recommend taking this as a node, and also taking a bunch of other Abyss support as well. So you want to have more abyssal depths, you want to have more abysses in general, and also while you're taking these, you may as well take Abyssal Army because it's a high quality node that will just give you a lot of extra XP. So that's the purpose of the Abyss clusters. The Expedition clusters are similar. The reason we're taking all the Expedition stuff is partly because Expedition is one of the best sources in the game for influence bases early on. Whilst when you're able to take down the Shaper, you'll get a lot of Shaper influence gear from him. When you're able to take down Conquerors and Cirrus, you'll get a lot of Conqueror influence gear that way. Until that point, Expedition tends to be one of the best ways to get these bases, and to get them in reasonably large numbers. And that's because one of the Remnant mods reads 20% chance for runic monsters to drop an influence piece of gear. That used to be 35%. It's being nerfed in 3.18 to 20%, but it's still going to be really good. So that's going to make Expedition a good source of influence gear. Now that you've got influence gear and high-level bases, what are you going to do with it? Well, we're taking all the Essence nodes and we're taking all of the Harvest nodes. These will enable you to then craft on those pieces of gear. A lot of people think of Harvest and only think of the very top crafts, but there's a lot of powerful uses for the middling tier crafts as well. Things like Reforge an item guaranteeing a critical modifier are really good on certain influence items, really good on certain cluster jewels and things like that. Whilst this tree doesn't help you generate cluster jewels, it does help you generate the influenced items, and those crafts are really good on those. So in terms of other things that might stand out a little bit on the tree, firstly, we are taking Stream of Consciousness. You want to unspec this node later. You want to unspec this node once you start building up a little bit of a Scarab pool. Stream of Consciousness locks you out of using Scarabs. In exchange for that, you have a considerable increase in the chances of getting Abysses, Breaches, Blights, Expeditions, Legions, Metamorphs, Mirrors of Delirium, Essences, Rituals, Rogue Exiles, Sacred Grove, Shrines, Smuggler's Caches, Strongboxes, and Tormented Spirits. Lots of extra chance to get stuff while you've got Stream of Consciousness active. At some point though, the opportunity cost of not using Scarabs gets too high, and at that point, Stream of Consciousness is gone. You just get rid of it at that point. I want to go through some of the options that you've got with this Atlas passive tree. With a slight amount of rerouting, instead of going north at the start, you can go north-northwest. And if you do that for one additional point, you can pick up the Perpetual Search. This is going to give you a lot of Elva missions. If you think you're going to want Elva missions in the long term, then I would suggest taking this rerouting. That'll require you to reroute through the left side of this essence cluster, prolific essence cluster instead of the right side, but that's functionally the same anyway. The small nodes do the same thing as on left side and right side anyway, so you'll get the same thing. You're just ultimately spending one additional passive in order to pick up Alva missions, and a lot of them, and that's up to you. For 2 points and a little bit of rerouting, you can pick up Nico's Mad Devotion. So again, you're going to take 5 points instead of 4, but that's also going to break your connection to Prolific Essence, and so you're either going to need to take this one here or this one here in order to reconnect everything. So that's going to cost you 2 points. For 2 points, you can take Wellspring of Creation, which will make your maps a lot safer, but potentially slower. For 3 points, you can take Pact with Energy. Now, this is a weird one because we're not taking any other Delve support. Why would you care about this? Well, Pact with Energy actually makes the map that you use a Nico mission in meaningfully easier. The purpose for this is that if you want to do Shaper Guardians and other in-map bosses like that, Conquerors of the Atlas and the like, then what you can do is use a Nico mission when you're running those maps. Then when you get to the boss, you'll have 3% maximum resistances, you'll have 105% increased damage, and you'll have 45% increased movement speed. That's a big deal. It'll make those bosses easier and at no cost in rewards, except of course for the opportunity cost of spending 3 passives there. For 8 points, you can take the North Cluster for the Eater of Worlds. So when I say the North Cluster, I mean you'll take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you'll get Shadow of Hunger and Regurgitated Relics. Not going to bother with Etched by Acid. I don't think it's very good, and the small nodes connected to it are not very good either. So that's all fine. You'll take the right-hand side only. For an additional 5 or 6 points, you can also take the Rampant Growth Cluster, potentially with Eldritch Gaze if you're feeling confident. This is something you're definitely going to want to spec into later in the league when your character's more powerful, but whether you want to do it early or not is up to you. Depends how confident you're feeling. As another option, for 19 points, you can take all of the Strongbox support on the passive tree. And this is something that's really, really powerful as an option and will give you a lot of value if you do it, but it is a big cost. So 19 points is a lot, but you will get a lot of value for it. By all of the passive support, what I mean is you'll be taking Twice Tempted, not with all of the small nodes, just with the direct path up there. You'll take this cluster of 5 points for Tamper-Proof and Secret Operations, and then you will take the core of this Strongboxes section as well. And that's basically everything on the passive tree for Strongboxes. For 5 points, you can instead take the Exiled Will and Ruckus cluster. This is not particularly powerful, but there is a challenge that requires it. So you might want to just spec into that with 5 points until you've got them done, till you've got that challenge done, and then at that point, unspec Exiled Will and Ruckus and forget about it. Or maybe you had some fun with it and you decide to keep it. You're also quite close to the content seal options, which you should at least consider, but I think in most cases you probably don't want to use these unless you know exactly what you're doing. Default to not using them. If you do use them to lock away things that take a long time to do in maps. So some of these mechanics take longer than others to do in a map, and you can lock those away, but I wouldn't lock away quick things. Anyway, that's all I've got. This is my initial Atlas passive tree. I'll put a link down in the description below. May your Varlobs have interesting results, and I will see you around.